trot out a few examples from the news recently, just to sort of kick things off. The other unfortunate thing is there's never a shortage of examples I can use. So just a few cases from recently. There's a Derek Kopp is a sophomore at Grand Valley State University. About 6 weeks ago, a undercover police officer bought $60 worth of marijuana from Kopp. It was actually about a gram that the officer bought. That amount of marijuana and that sale was enough to send the tactical unit, which is basically another name for a SWAT team, into Kopp's apartment in the middle of the night. They came in through a sliding door. Kopp was asleep on his couch. One of the police officers had a flashlight that they shined in his face. He put his arm up to block his eyes from the flash, and one of the officers shot him in the chest. Kopp was unarmed. The officer had mistaken him sort of making this movement for raising a gun. The bullet went through his rib, punctured his liver, and collapsed one of his lungs. The police found a misdemeanor amount of marijuana. Actually, they didn't find any marijuana, I'm sorry. The amount that he sold was a misdemeanor amount, but they didn't find any actual marijuana in his apartment that night. The officer, this is actually a rare case. The officer who shot Kopp in this case has actually been charged with a misdemeanor charge, which almost never happens. But Kopp himself was also charged with drug distribution, as if taking a bullet to the liver and lung weren't punishment enough for selling $60 worth of marijuana. There's another story sort of unfolding in Philadelphia over the last several months, where a rogue narcotics squad has been raiding the city's bodegas. Bodegas are these sort of convenience store type places set up usually by immigrants, where they sell the various sundries that you find at your typical 7-Eleven, but they also cash checks. They provide wire services for remittances back home. And what's been happening is this one particular narcotics officer has been essentially shaking these places down. What happens is he's getting warrants for, not even for drugs, this is just what blows my mind on these cases, not even for drugs. The warrants are that the operators of these bodegas are selling Ziploc bags to people, knowing that that the people they're selling them to are then using them to package drugs. So basically, they're reading these store owners' minds, and the fact that you can get a search warrant for that just astounds me. But basically, then once they get the warrant, they're sending the SWAT team into these bodegas, and it's fascinating. I really encourage you to look this up because it's just absolutely mind-blowing. They all have security cameras, and the first thing that the tactical unit is doing when they go into these bodegas is they're cutting the wires on all the security cameras, so nobody can see what they're doing. In a couple of cases, they screwed up. They didn't get all the cameras. In one case, and it's interesting, but in one case the owner had the camera had a feed that went off-site to a server that was off-site. So they couldn't confiscate the computer and they couldn't actually get the video. In that case, they actually went back a week later to the guy's house to confiscate his computer that had the video of the raid on the store. And what they were basically what was happening is the cops were then shaking these places down. And they were stealing money. Lots of bodega owners were saying that the police reports were reporting finding much less money than was actually confiscated. They were, stealing snacks and sodas. They were sort of helping themselves to the food. Now, this isn't to say that this is your typical drug raid, right? But what we are finding now is that there was no supervision of this narcotics squad whatsoever. Nobody was looking at these warrants and saying, why in the world is this one squad, why have they served 14 warrants on bodegas in the city for Ziploc bags? There was no oversight whatsoever. This particular cop was meeting none of the standards that were set out by the city. The city has some very specific standards about how, if you're a police officer working with an informant, you have to have another officer with you at all times. Any surveillance that you do has to be done by 2 or more officers. And the purpose is because narcotics policing presents so many temptations for corruption. The idea is you want as many officers working together as possible to resist that temptation. In this case, this one officer and his brother were doing all the buys. They were the only ones working with the informants, and none of their supervisors ever held them accountable. Even when these bodega owners started coming forward with complaints, the police did nothing. It wasn't until they went to the Philadelphia Daily News and the reporters there started digging and putting all these stories together that the police department actually started responding. The FBI came in, and there's now a civil rights investigation going on. I guess the last case I'll look at just very quickly is the Michael Phelps case, right? So here you have this Olympic athlete who, I know we're here to talk about the SWAT teams and not the drug war in general, but I think it's a pretty good argument against the idea that, users smoke pot and you're going to end up tasting burritos for a living if you experiment with marijuana. So Phelps, this picture comes out. The Richland County, South Carolina Sheriff's Department has a tank. It's an actual tank. And I'm going to get into this later, but basically what happens is the Pentagon is, since the late 80s, has been making surplus military equipment available to local police departments basically for free or at very, very steep discounts. And what's happened is you've seen literally millions of pieces of equipment that were designed for use on a battlefield being transferred to local police departments and used on U.S. streets against U.S. civilians. Most of the time, the equipment is sort of demilitarized, right? So if you have a tank, they take the gun turret off. Sheriff Leon Mott of Richland Hills, South Carolina, didn't want to do that. So his tank, which is used in an urban area, actually has a fully 360-degree turret, gun turret with an automatic 50 caliber machine gun, belt-fed machine gun. Now, I don't know a whole lot about guns and ammunition, but people who do have told me that a 50 caliber bullet will go through about 7 or 8 city blocks no matter what is in its way. There's absolutely no reason in an urban environment to have a 50 caliber belt-fed machine gun. Now, Sheriff Lott says he calls the tank the Peacemaker, which he, I guess, took from a verse in the Bible, and basically says that the mere fact that he has the gun means that he'll never have to use it. I hope that's the case, because, but anyway, that gives you sort of an idea of the mentality that we're dealing with here. So what happens when the Phelps case comes out? Well, Lott is embarrassed by Phelps, right? He's losing the drug war, obviously, if this Olympic athlete can come into his jurisdiction and smoke marijuana in a house and be all over the internet. So he sends a SWAT team out to the homes of anyone he can find who were at the party where Phelps was photographed smoking marijuana. So now we're to the point where you don't even have to actually be accused of a drug crime. You could have been in the presence of a drug crime. And the attorneys, if you read the attorneys for these people, basically what they said is these poor guys, and maybe they were pot smokers, who knows, but they're sitting at home, and all of a sudden the Richland Sheriff's Department SWAT team kicks down their door, throws them on the ground. They don't ask, where's the drugs? They don't ask, where are the weapons? They ask, what do you know about Michael Phelps? That's what they're saying as these guys are on the ground. And we laugh, but I mean, these guys had, guns pointed at the back of their heads. It's absolute insanity. And the fact that this was reported nationally, and, this goes back to sort of our complacency with this stuff. This was reported nationally, and, these guys' lawyers are making a big stink about it, but I didn't see any editorials denouncing this. I mean, there were some saying that, this is ridiculous, the guy smoked pot, leave him alone. But these specific tactics, this idea of sending SWAT teams after witnesses to a crime is absolute insanity, and there wasn't a huge backlash against that. There wasn't a backlash against the guy's tank, for goodness sake.